Welcome, everybody, to the Me and Jesse podcast. Mark, you can't be more excited because
I'm excited.
Yeah. Tom Brady lost.
Listen, I'm not even a hater. I love Tom Brady. I just love it even more when he loses, though. And that's
Washington.
It's this got to be one of the most bizarre NFL seasons ever, just with the craziness.
It's the time change.
Weird.
I didn't want a time change. I voted to stop the time change.
You know what? And I was the idiot that voted to keep it the same. And now in hindsight, I go, my wife's yelling at me for doing that because she voted like you did. And now in hindsight, I'm like, you and her were right.
Yes,
it's not. Yeah, it's ridiculous. It gets dark here at 4:00 in the afternoon. It's ridiculous.
And it messes with the football people.
Yeah, the nucleus of the football.
We have a great show for you tonight, everybody. Jim Thompson is joining us. Jim Thompson was a former NHL player. Tough guy, but didn't want to be, actually. And we'll hear from him right after this break on the Me and Jesse podcast. We'll see you in a couple minutes.
Get ready. It's time for the Me and Jesse podcast with Mark Pavlich and Jesse Martineau.
Welcome back to the Me and Jesse podcast, everybody. I'm Mark Pavlich. Across from me in the Grove, Jesse Martineau, and our very special guest today, NHL veteran, and the story goes long, Mr. Jim Thompson.
How are you, gentlemen?
Oh, we're doing great. How are you?
Good. Thanks for
having me.
All the way
in Toronto.
Toronto.
Just a little town just outside Kleinburg, Ontario.
Oh, wow.
Oh, cool. Right on. No, you're initially from Edmonton, though, or were you born here?
I was born in Edmonton, moved to Markham, Ontario when I was 16 to live with my aunt and uncle to play junior hockey.
Oh, okay. So talk about that for a minute, because I'm always really interested about like kids having to leave home and stuff, especially when you're young in the formidable years, to play hockey. And we're one of those sports with hockey anyway that really does that and kind of pulls you to different areas. What was that like for you?
But Jim, can you do a two-parter for me, please? Because this has been driving me nuts all day. I want you to tell us about that, but I also want you to tell us if you think that's okay in this day and age to keep doing this with all the stories we've heard in the last little while about kids billeting, hockey coaches doing weird things. Sideways. And I want you, because the question is too vague that way. I know your background immensely, but I want to know your personal opinion on that because I've been thinking about that all day.
Perfect. Great question. So my moving when I was 16 was not your typical going billet and play hockey. I grew up in a trailer park outside of Edmonton called Westview Village. So for the people out there that know, the trailer park boys, Village, back then, it's funny because it's very similar to the show.
Yeah.
How we grew up, no money, lots of alcohol, lots of different things, right? Both of my parents were alcoholics. So I was, unbeknownst to me, guys, my dad, who was born in Markham, took me on a trip when I was 14 to meet my aunt and uncle. And I got introduced to the Toronto Marlboros of the OHL, where I ended up playing a whole bunch of things. So I started the wrong type of life when I was 12 years old. I had a job timekeeping at Parkland Arena. So I had money and I was buying marijuana and a champagne called Baby Duck.
Yeah.
Me and a couple buddies before grade 8 would get stoned and drink every day before school. So this was the lifestyle. And at 14, I got out of that lifestyle. And then not knowing my dad was taking me for two reasons, because I was a good hockey player. And my uncle, Jim Regan, was 25 years sobriety from alcohol. So it was this perfect marriage of a young guy with talent that was living the wrong way. So I ended up moving out to Markham billeting with my aunt and uncle for 3 years, and obviously having a decent junior career, and got drafted by Washington Capitals, and then the journey goes on from there. So that's how I ended up in Markham, billeting at a young age with people I didn't even know. And, I loved hockey, so there's nothing that would stop me from doing the things I had to do to keep going.
So how is it then, Mark's question then about, taking kids out this young, and in your scenario, maybe that worked for you, but how is it in general?
Well, let's not crap over billets, because billets do a great job in hockey. So we're not really talking about them in general. We're talking about when the young kid leaves home at this age. We've heard horror stories of what's happened.
Yes. And I guess I'll start it off this way, 2-part answer. For every horror story, there's thousands of great situations.
That's right.
And, the players that I own a junior team now, my wife and I, it's called the Aurora Tigers. It's a junior A team, like your Alberta teams out there, Brooks Bandits, Fort McMurray Old Barons, those types of teams. But so we have billets, and we do, we have billet families that we have to investigate, get police checks.
Awesome.
I go into the home. I sit down with the family and see what their culture's like. You can walk into a home and get a good feel for what the culture's like.
Yeah.
So we really, really do our homework on where our kids stay. We've never had an issue, which is great for the Aurora Tigers. Yeah. But Mark, to answer your question, the stories that we hear, it's frightening to send your kid away to an unknown family, an unknown, all the things that are unknown. And sit back at home and know that your son, and actually we had 2 boys that went billeting, 2 hockey players, 2 of our boys billeted. Obviously we went, met the family, all that sort of thing, but you still don't know. Right, and I can tell you a lot of horror stories of ex-teammates of mine, some of the stories that we see in the news, and you know what? It's awful. So my answer would be this: if you go and do your background checks, you do your, spend some time with that family. And at the end of the day, if your son is 16, 17, 18, he's got a voice. And there's got to be that connection of, you need to be telling me are you being fed properly? Is there alcohol in the house? What's going on? Are they smoking marijuana? Like, we need to know. So I would have to depend on my son, or, for families that are sending their boys away, to have the voice of what's good and bad.
But is that new? Would you say that's new in the world of hockey? Because I know we've had people on our shows like Theo Fleury. We've had all kinds of guys, and they've made reference to this. And the part that disturbs me is, and I come from a huge hockey background, so I love the game. I love the direction it's going in, but at the same time it's hard to get rid of it all, is it not, Jim? Like, it's hard to get rid of that from the game totally, because we've been hearing things coming even lately, just recently again, and it's like, when is this going to stop, man? It is probably the greatest sport in the world when it comes to how guys act and how we're brought up. And it really is, like, between NFL, between anything, NHL guys are special. And since we started this show, there's no question they're special. They come from a different way of living, small town cities, and then, going into the big leagues, making money. It's a different world. So, where does, how, like, when you just said that to me now, that you go check everybody's stuff, you think that's standard where you come from? Do you think other people are doing it? Like, you're an owner of the junior A team. Do you think other guys are doing what you're doing? Really?
I think now, Mark, they are. And I have to think, with what's gone on since Theo, Sheldon Kennedy, all these different guys that went through this garbage, and we can mention lots more names, but it's a responsibility, number one, if you're coming to play for my hockey team, that I protect your kid. I have to protect your kid.
I love it.
It's my responsibility. And I get people, I'd love to billet a kid. What's it entail? I said, okay, give me your address. I go over and sit down with that family even before we entertain it.
Wow.
Wow. And I'll give you an example. One of our new billets is an Italian lady, and she never had kids. I looked at her whole career platform. I did some due diligence on it. I Googled her, what she told me, what she did, it all backed up. Her name was there. And my two billet boys in that house are loving it because the food she's cooking,
unbelievable.
She's become like their billet mom. She goes to all the games, and it's a perfect fit. So, to answer your question again, it's that one of those things is, don't just send kids to a home and think it's going to be all right, because you guys, we all know it's not going to be all right if it's not all right.
Yeah, I love 100%. That. I'm glad that people heard that though today, Jim, because unfortunately that's never really been talked about on our show before with this topic exactly. And it's interesting because I think parents that do watch, because a lot of parents watch our show, it's important for them, like you said, for your own children to say, hey, something's going on wrong here right now. And we just want you to know, Dad, maybe you can talk to them, whatever the kid. You're not ratting anybody out by doing that. That's not what it is. So,
how do you encourage the kids, though, to speak up? Because I find that's the tough one. I mean, when we have with the 20-year-old that can't speak up for himself or doesn't feel like he can, how do you encourage them to start speaking up?
This is what we do. So when I send a player into a home, I will go there, we all meet together, and I will have that player one-on-one and saying, if the food... because I will give you some stories where in the past, and this isn't with my team, but we're 22 governors in the league, and I know other junior leagues where you send a kid to an alcoholic billet mom or dad, and the $600 they're getting from the team or from the family, a little bit's going towards food, and the rest is going to alcohol.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So where the voice would be, Jesse, is, I need you the minute you're not being fed right, the minute that you're not getting the food you want. We're athletes, pasta, chicken, salads. If it's burgers and fries every night, you need to talk to us. Yep. These kids are aspiring to get to the NHL. They're aspiring to go to college, one step at a time here, right? College, maybe the NHL. They have to eat. They're athletes.
Yeah.
So there's a whole section of checking off boxes that this person, and I tell them, you're going to have to cook this way. This is the 90% of the meals, for energy, the carbs and all that sort of thing. So you'll know.
Yeah, so that is a safety check then, because if that could be the first thing that you kind of see that would be an issue. Like, hey, the food's not meeting standard, which could be a whole underneath issue going on.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I love that, the checks and balances. That's.
Yeah, and without breaking code.
Right.
Right. November 17th, I celebrate my 13 years of sobriety. Okay, so congrats. I don't have a problem sitting across from a father or mother and ask.
Yeah.
Is alcohol frequently drank at dinner? My wife is Italian. They drink their wine at dinner.
Yeah.
There's a difference between pulling out a glass of red wine, or if you're an alcoholic family, there's going to be all kinds of things going on. So I'll ask those questions because I want to know. I don't want my young hockey players sitting at a table every night where there's whiskey or rum or what have you, right?
Right.
So,
well, when I look through your career, Jim, I want to know this too, though. I look through the career, and because the show's only a certain amount of time, and one thing you'll find about at our show, we've been doing it for a long time, and the reason why is because we do a ton of research. So the problem is that if we get stuck on one topic, we would have to do 9 parts with you. We just keep so what my curiosity is, when I look at your career through this time, when you went from juniors and then you went into the NHL, what I'm looking to ask you is, if I gave you a do-over, and this is important for people at home too, because you have an opportunity to explain to people, if you had a do-over with your actual career, what would have you changed? What would have you made different that would have took you from playing more in the NHL and less going back and staying more in the NHL? Because you could see when you went to Los Angeles Kings, they liked you. Like, you were there. You were playing in the finals. But I know in your heart, you must have been thinking to yourself, hey, I'm a really good hockey player. I killed it in juniors, and I could do this in the NHL too. But what's that one thing you could tell people to watch out for, or that you could have did different to continue on?
So I trained hard, okay, but I also played hard, okay, and I'm an open book when it comes to this. So night before games, I was serious. I got to bed. When there was time to have some fun, I was loosey-goosey. And I say this about every hockey team, guys. There's your hockey geeks, which I should have been, where they go home, they eat properly, they're stretching, they're watching a movie, and they're going to bed. Then you got the middle group that will do that, but maybe they're out at a restaurant till having some wine, right? And then you got your third party, which are the guys who are more in the party mode and they're good hockey players or what have you. So I flirted on this side more, okay? So what I would have changed is this. I wish I would have had the complete all-in hockey geek, no drinking, no partying, and been that hockey geek. That's one thing I'll say right now. And unfortunately, growing up in the family, I did, I already told you, I started drinking and doing drugs when I was 12 years old. I used monkey see, monkey do. So the other thing is this. I was a goal scorer my whole way up. My last year of minor hockey, I had almost 70 goals, in OHL. And anybody who played with me or against me, I could shoot a puck and I could play. Having 3 older brothers that were bikers taught me protective instincts. And I'm not Stu Grimson or Dave Brown and these massive 6'6" giants, but I was 6'1", I was 215 pounds, and I did it all with fear. But when someone took advantage of my teammates, I was there. It was just I had to get in there. And that's what I became, this enforcer. In the role that I did not like. I'll use the word hate. I hated it, but I did it because my dream was to play in the NHL. And it started with Washington. And Jesse, I'm going to go back to your thing here. So Brian Murray, the late Brian Murray, said to me, my second year, I played in Binghamton and I had 195 penalty minutes and, whatever amount of fights as a rookie, fighting all these big guys in the AHL. He said, we need you to fight more if you want to make Washington. The next year, I had 41 fights in 57 games, led the league in penalty minutes, and hated every bit of it. But guess what? My passion and dream was to play in the NHL. So when you see all these things, I finally get to LA where the late Tom Webster saw who I was.
That's right.
I had a relationship with Gretzky. Gretzky saw that I was a great teammate in the dressing room. And also I was going to help Marty and Jay Miller with the bad boys around that division, because there's a lot of guys that he still had to be protected. So I fit that mold perfectly, is why I ended up in LA 3 different times. And so what I would have changed, I wish I was the hockey geek all the way through. And I wish I would have got to play my game instead of just being this 4th liner in the NHL and go out and fight.
I love it. I'm glad you said it out loud, because most people won't. And I think it's super important that people know, like, that kid that's getting drafted now, that's going into the next step, and he wants to go party and do this and do that. Yeah. He can hear you today say, hey, listen, here's my do-over, man. Here's my mulligan. I'm happy with my life, but if I would have done it over, I would have changed these specific things.
Do you feel, though, in that time that you could have said something about being the enforcer? Or was that it? Like, I want to play in the NHL, I'll do whatever the heck it takes.
It's like this, I'm sure we'll get into concussions and all that. Right. You wouldn't say a word. Whatever they wanted. Like, it's like this. Walking into the Washington Capitals dressing room in senior jersey, getting ready to play a game in the NHL, or walking into the Binghamton Broome County Arena in the AHL, right? Dark and dungy. 2 different things. Just it's a different. The dream is there, and you're going, okay, how do I keep the dream going? That's so. Jesse, I tell you, it was this. What drove me to a lot of my demons was the fear of fighting. I always say this. I had an unbelievable game in Chicago Stadium. I fought Stu Grimson, Mike Peluso. I scored 2 of my NHL goals in Chicago Stadium. And the next, I'm like the star of the game. And then they go, okay, guys, hurry up. We got to get the bus to the airport. We're going to Detroit. Right away, my fear starts because Joey Kosher and Bob Probert are related.
Yes, one of the two. One of the two.
And it's like this. It's like, you know what? I'm first of all, I'm not even in their category. I will fight anybody. I was smart. Right. I would strong and smart. I'd hang in there. But this is just like, okay. And this went on every day in my life of a pro hockey player.
How did you cope with that?
Well, I coped with it from drugs and alcohol. It's no different than people under stress, under demons, all these depression and all that. Why do we have so much drug abuse? Why do we have so much alcoholism? I can tell you, sitting here, I would numb the fear by numbing myself. And then the next day, game day, I'd be popping Sudafeds, 5 cups of coffee, and I'd be wired, right? Heart beating out of my chest, all this stuff. And that was the lifestyle that I led. I touch on this. I had a cottage back when I played in the NHL and in pro hockey out in Edmonton. Soon as the calendar, the summer was great. You're out by the bonfire, right? As soon as the calendar, gentlemen, turned to August, I started to get anxiety and I started to feel the sweats because I knew I was 1 month away from the day I stepped on the ice in training camp. There's going to be a whole bunch of people there fighting for my job, and I was going to have to fight them to keep my job. So it's not like I go there and I'm a goal scorer and okay, training camp starting, here we go. The minute I put my skates on in Washington, LA, or wherever I played, I knew I was going to war.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
And it's an awful feeling that you're bare knuckle fighting.
Bare knuckle.
That's right.
Bare knuckle fighting every day that you put your skates on.
That's actually something we don't think about is the preseason. Like your season starts in August.
Yes.
My season started in August because my mental is already going, and I'm just like, and the anxiety. I'd be in the summertime, hot summer night, and I'd be in bed thinking, okay, we play the Islanders. I know Mick Vakota's there. I know
that's right.
there. Like I'm already playing it. These are exhibition games.
Yeah, exactly.
And then what you do is you look at all their draft picks. Who's in the 300 minutes? The kid from the Western League, right? And you're going, okay,
true, yeah.
And they're all coming after you because what everybody's trying to do.
They're jockeying. They're jockeying.
They're all making a name for themselves.
Yeah,
Which, I got to know Bob Probert. We did a movie together called The Love Guru. Mike Myers hockey movie.
Myers, yeah.
Yeah.
So Bob lived with me during the week when we shot the movie, and we sat there, and he's like, and I was telling him this story I'm telling you. He goes, looked at me, started laughing. He goes, do you understand that every night somebody was coming after me because heavy? And I'm thinking to myself, and then the big boys are going after Bobby. And I listened to him, and I'm thinking, man, oh man, that's a whole nother level.
I saw him, Jim. I grew up in Windsor, where he grew up, where Ty Domi grew up. We're all the same age. Yep. I saw Bobby kick the shit out of the toughest guy in my high school when he was young, right? And everybody pleaded with this guy, don't fight Bobby Probert on the street. Forget about hockey, the street. And he literally pillar to post, like almost killed this guy. And he begged the guy not to fight him at a bush party when I was a kid. I mean, I remember it like yesterday. And I remember the guy's name. I don't want to embarrass him on the show. So he got a beating from Bobby, but I'm telling you, like, he was tested everywhere he went. We would go to a nightclub. We'd go to a nightclub in Detroit called Chassis, and he would be there. We'd all be hanging out, and that was in my party era, and he was partying at that time. And people would just mess with him, and I would, and he'd look at me and say, I would say, why would people do that with you? He goes, Mark, it happens on the street. It happened on the ice. It happens at every nightclub we went to. He said it was crazy, man.
Obviously, the game's changed immensely from that, 80s, 90s era where, we went to see the heavyweight fights, but with it changing and evolving, is there still a position that you could play in today's NHL?
Oh yeah. Like I could play the game. Like I was a good hockey player. And, I look at the Lucic, I look at, Cassian there in Edmonton. These guys are very, very good power forwards.
They are. Yeah.
And you got a lot of power forwards. Foligno in Minnesota.
Yeah.
You want to drop the gloves with them? Be ready, because they can fight.
Yeah.
And I love Bobby. And I know everybody will say Bobby was the toughest player to ever play the game. I believe Zdeno Chara is. This guy.
Wow.
Well, guys, 6'11" on skates. He's 250 pounds. All you gotta do is watch his fights. Yeah. And I always say this: if you fought him 4 out of 7 times, the Tony Twists and the Proberts and all, but that big and that strong, anybody will tell you who grabs onto him. I would never want to, that's just another level. So my point is, you still got the Tom Wilsons and these types of guys. So I would think I would fit into like the Cassian role, because I watch Cassian. I'm going, why didn't I pay attention more to that type of go out, hit, pick your spots, show them you can play, show them you can score, like I did in the minors and junior. But you guys just said it, in the 80s and 90s, what it was, Vaseline on the face, fourth liners. As soon as the fourth line jumped over, you jumped over. You didn't even have to ask. You didn't even have to ask. It was like, well, who are you fighting, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But Jim, you think Cassie doesn't sit at home today the night before and sweats going, I'm going to be in a fight tomorrow. Not in a million years he thinks that. If it happens, it happens, but he's not worried about it. He's not checking like you checked, who has penalty minutes. None of those guys are doing that anymore.
No, Cassian would look to see who's in, who would be a problem for him, like Kachuk in Calgary.
Yeah.
Okay, that would give him a little bit of anxiety, because let's face it, that whole beef they had, if Kachuk knocked his ass around, it wouldn't have been good for Cassian, right? So he still had a job to do there.
Yeah.
But I used to spend hours and hours watching videotape, before we go. Well, I have to, because, you go into like Mike Peluso was 6'5", a lefty.
Jeez.
How am I going to fight him, right? Like, how do you grab, you got to plan it all out before you even get there.
Crazy.
Yeah,
it was a different era. Like, it was really a different era than that. When you're talking about preparing for like a fight, like a fighter would.
You know what's funny? And when people think about it, I said, you have no idea. UFC guys, your sport, Mark.
Yeah.
Okay. Boxing, you fight once every 8 months, 6 months, whatever. We're going out no gloves, and I'm telling you, and you get against a Kosher or Tony Twist or these guys who can crush your face, right? Dave Brown's and these guys. And again, I'm not 6'5", and I'm not in their category. And I'm going out fighting, David and Goliath. And every night, bare-knuckle fighting. You want to talk about anxiety, drug use, and alcoholism?
Wow.
This is what created.
Yeah, Jim, technically, you're light heavy. You're not even like those guys are heavyweight, right? You're technically
they have you listed at 6'205" on your NHL profile.
I played basically at 215.
Yeah,
okay?
Cruiserweight.
Okay.
Yeah, and I worked out. I worked out. I was really strong, in great shape. I really took pride in my off ice. And I had to hang on for dear life. You fight a Dave Brown, which I fought him twice. This guy, if you let his left go, you saw what he did Stu Grimson across his face. Yeah. So I had to get in there and just, I'll tell you a funny story. So I fought Dave Brown. I was in LA and he was in Edmonton. And as you guys know, that's my hometown. So, right away I got his left tied up, right? And we're, it's nothing. And I'm a couple little rabbit punches, and I just want to survive. So at the end of the fight,
which is great.
Well, that's all I did. Hey, that's a win for me. That's a win for me.
100%.
Well, anyways, at the end of the fight, he's bent over and he's like this. And I'm thinking, damn, did I catch him with a good one? He was looking for his contact. I want his contact out of his eye, right? So I'm like, holy shit. I just felt like he was the heavyweight champ of the league. And I'm thinking, wow, right? And they're all looking, and I realized, it's his contact because he's snarling at me in the friggin' penalty box. But anyway, I'm here to talk about it.
Let's talk about then getting repeatedly punched in the face. How did that affect you? And do you still have lasting effects from that, do you think?
8 concussions documented, as we find out with, just a hard body check, the brain shakes in the skull. I played a rough game, guys. And so I got constant ringing in this year, and I've had it for probably 15 years. I can't even remember back, but it's been there for so long. It never goes away. It's here now. My memory, my headaches, I do know that I suffer from depression. The thing what keeps me going is I work out every day. So if I'm starting to feel the fog coming over.
Yeah, I love it.
I got to go. I do have I have dark days.
Yeah.
And where I'm just like, I can't move. It's like, I got no energy. Obviously I live a clean lifestyle now. So I know it's coming from this area. Mm-hmm. And the effects are there. And I eat healthy. I do everything I'm supposed to be doing not to have those dark days. So fitness is a huge, huge thing for me to, get through the tough times.
What I found out was anybody that uses the terms you just used, because Jesse and I have done stuff in the past with mental illness, a lot of stuff. It's funny because people that use the word dark, that's not you have a little bit of anxiety or you feel sad. That's people with depression. When I've heard you use the terms, Jim. I've heard you use the term like black hole, right? When I hear the term black hole, I know what that means too as well. Like, that's something different. That's not like, oh, I'm just a little sad today. It's real depression. And when I hear people like me, I never use those terms. I heard those terms. Like, I've heard the black hole. I've heard darkness. People have to understand there's a difference between being sad and being clinically depressed. And that's what people like Michael Landsberg's been on our show, right? And he was talking the same way, and he talks the same kind of language you're talking. But people at home have to understand, like, hey, you had a bad day, that's one thing, but this is something totally different.
Yeah. And talking about Michael, I'm going to give him a shameless plug. You remember Off the Record?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mark was on it actually a number of times.
I was the third highest guest on that show. I had 92 episodes with Michael.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So Michael and I know each other very well, and I know Michael's, situation. And when I talk about the bad day, the dark day, I pray that day doesn't come, because it's a day where I got to fight the whole day just to breathe.
Yeah.
And it's like, my wife's like, what's wrong? And I'm just like, it's that day, right? Like,
Yeah.
she knows now. And she's like, well, go for a run. Go do it. Like, go do, she knows, go do whatever you got to do. And it's for anybody out there who knows what I'm talking about. And sadly, the individuals who suffer more bad days than good days, you know, this is where we talk about a lot of bad things happening when it happens to your body.
I'm actually really interested in what you said about your spouse, because that's something that I find was really hard for me and mine to explain to her how I felt, because she never understood. She never felt anything like that. And is it, is that all in your head? Like, what is this? Like, so what was that process like for you and your wife then?
So at first, the same thing, Jess, where, okay, get over it, suck it up. This. So finally I sat her down one day and I said, here's my situation. I said, you have to understand this study. I made her watch the movie Concussion. Yeah. Right. If you guys seen the movie. So, it's very simple. I don't want to scare you that I'm going to commit suicide. I don't want to scare you that I'm going to, tear the house down with anger. That's not where I'm at. But understand, through head trauma, I suffer from anxiety, mental health, depression, and the blows to the head over my time has affected me. So when I tell you I'm not feeling well, you need to take it serious and understand what I'm going through. Right. Because she's come home and seen me sitting in a chair, and it's like, how long have you been there? And I said, most of the afternoon in a dark room. And that's not me. That's not me. But I am so, depressed or mental health, anxiety, whatever you want, put them all together, that I can't move. Yeah. And I find a way today that I can't sit there, because that's not good either. So I push myself through it. And I get buzzed right now talking about it, because it's awful. And the good news is I haven't had that day for a while now. So, every day I get up, I don't think about it. And I just hope my head's not spinning. Right. Saying, oh boy.
We had Kelly Carudi on the show, and his daughter has a foundation called More Good Days. And I just want to say, like, that's kind of the thing, right? Like, we all try to push through and have more good days than bad. Like, we're trying to find those things that A, trigger us, but also B, can help push us through and get us out of that hole. I always find too, when I first feel, and you said the fog, and I can relate with that word, because that fog is the first thing that kind of tries to settle in a little bit. And if you can identify the fog and do something to try to push it away, you have a good chance of not going down the rabbit hole and finding yourself in a really dark place.
It's true, Jesse. You hit it right on the head. And that's why being proactive, going to bed early is a big thing. I'm up early and I go to bed early. And just to get my proper rest and being able to deal with, the long-term effects of being a pro hockey player. Wow. And I broke my back playing. I've had, 12 surgeries. My body's beaten up. And, I need to, every day of my life now, make sure that I'm taking care, number one, of the brain, and the body, number two.
Do you think like, I get in a lot of trouble for saying this, because when we had a show prior about mental illness, I was a big advocator against not taking pills, right? And people were like, oh, I can't believe you said that. And even Michael, I love him. I love Michael Landsberg. He did so much for my organization and me. And he's pro, taking certain pills for this and that. And I said, everybody knows this now. I could write a book on anxiety, like a book. And it comes from my father, Matt Pavlich. He suffers from it immensely, and he suffered from it in the NHL when no one even knew what it was. So he was back in the NHL. People are like, "What's wrong with this guy?" Right? But they ended up finding out, well, there was nothing really wrong with him. He had this in him. And I've explained to many people over the years that they say, Mark, what kind of medication do you take? I say, nothing. I said, I think that would be my demise because of my addictive personality. That would be a problem for me, right? So I said, no, I'm going to take up hiking. I'm going to take up biking. I'm going to take up, going to the movies. I'm going to take up all these factors that if I do these on a consistent basis every week, I don't need to take anything. But if I let one of those or two of those or three of those things out of the 5 or 6 things I got to do every week, that's when I get back into my, oh my God, I don't want to leave the house. You know what I mean? So there's kind of a trick to it. I call it the qualm, but it's like you have your qualm of 5 or 6 things that you have to consistently do. And I know Jesse hates this word, but this routine that you have to be in, but it's a cool routine. It's a fun routine. This is what I want to be doing. But if I'm not doing those things, I'm in big trouble.
So I'm looking in the mirror right now, Mark. So when I was really struggling, and it was about 2 years ago, and I went to my doctor and I went over everything, and he wanted to give me antidepressants.
I know. Right away.
So I come home with the 2 bottles, and my wife's like, what did he say? I said, we said, I'm going to take this. And she said, no, you're not. Right? She was adamant. She goes, first of all, you're a recovering drug addict on opiates and, all the things I did. So she said, so you're going to tell me you're going to do drugs for the rest of your life. What's changed? Right. It wasn't like, making me like guilting me. She's like, you can't take these. I'm the same thing, addictive personality. Yeah. And I looked at her and go, you're right. Like if I start and they make me feel better, I'm all in.
You're right.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm the type of guy, like when I was taking OxyContin and Percocet, well, that's feeling pretty good. Let me take 2 more.
Yeah.
What's the difference, right?
Yeah.
So, Mark, I'm speaking your language here. Is I went the other way and said, okay, I got to figure this out. I started reading. I started doing my due diligence on it. Exercise, healthy eating, exercise, getting to bed early. And guess what? I'm doing good right now. And I'm going to continue to do this. And it's working. And I haven't taken a pill.
But have to stay on it. And that's what everybody doesn't understand. People all the time say, oh, well, Mark, your theory kind of works. I'm like, okay, explain to me what you missed this week. Did you go walk like I told you in nature? They go, no, I left that one out, and I left out, and I'm a big hydrator. I think hydration is the key to a lot of stuff with anxiety people. I might have to pee 47 times and people laugh all the time because I'm like a little kid. I'm like, oh, I gotta go to the washroom really quick over here, guys. And people laugh all the time, but I'm like, yeah, because I drink an obscene amount of water. But the hydration does something to me. I don't know what it is. It's between the hydration and hiking and these things that do stuff to me. I just stopped boxing at 50 years old. I was still boxing like everybody was boxing with me, and that was something that was just so fantastic for the endorphin release for me that I got addicted to the endorphin release. Can you imagine? I
because you got to punch me in the face a lot.
Yeah, well, our great friend Eddie Hallaby, right? You know him.
Of course,
right?
Yes.
We've been friends for 20 something years, but him and I started boxing together 22 years ago, and I never stopped. And the crazy part was I realized what that did for me, like not so much the punching in the head part, but the part about the sweating and the endorphin release. Yeah. And I was like, I started to get addicted to that. And I was like, that's probably the best addiction I've ever had. Okay. Because the rest were not good. So
I agree 100%.
Yeah. I'm going to stick to that one.
100% exercise, sweating is like, I was an athlete, right? Now my thing is 15K power walks. I don't run anymore because it's too hard on the body. So 15K power walks in the Peloton. And it's the biggest drug that I can get my head around right now. It's hard. It's tedious. There's days I'm going, oh, you got to do this again. But when I'm done, I'm on top of the world.
Wow.
Well, I'm telling you right now, I'm going to find some way to get you to Edmonton in February because I started a charity, and I never plugged the charity ever on this show. Jesse knows about it. It's called Everest in Edmonton. We raise money every year. And what we have done is we created the same route to the base of Everest to the top. And it's exactly 44 and a half kilometers through the river valley in February, like we did last year. We raised over $13,000 for breast cancer last year in 2 weeks. And I said to people, they said, Mark, why would you do something so crazy? And I said, because I don't think I can do it. And so when we started this thing, I thought I was going to do it 1 year. And then all of a sudden we started websites. People started talking about it. News was covering it. Now we're doing it forever. So it's Everest in Edmonton. It's a 44 and a half kilometer hike through the river valley of Edmonton in the middle of winter, simulating the same distance from the base of Everest to the peak.
So how long does it take you?
It takes 8 hours.
And what time do you start?
We start in the morning, so we don't want to. We finish. But Jim, the part I'm trying to say is, if my history is, if you saw me in a mech store looking for poles now, you would think that is bananas, because I hate, there's no one that hates the cold more than me. And I live in Edmonton, and I'm like, and I'm now started, but what I'm trying to tell you is my mind shifted so much from doing that I was like, I would no Pelotons, no nothing. I don't care what the weather is. I go outside and I hike every day. And something about the cold. I watched that crazy Wim Hof one time talking about the cold. And I was like, you know what? I hate it so much. I need to figure a way to embrace it and get inside me. You know what I mean? Because I hate it. I despise it. I've never took a cold shower in my life. And all of a sudden I started doing this, and I'm like, wait a second. Minus 25, and I'm hiking 20 kilometers on a Saturday. And after it's over, and I'm telling you, I'm not athletic at all. And it was like, wow. I like, your whole mind is just like, whoosh.
Yeah.
And so what I tell people is, even we had Laval St. Germain on our show. He's the only Canadian to ever hike Everest without using oxygen. The only he was on our show, and he said, Mark, I'm coming to do it with you this year. He's going to come do it with us. I said, wow, he's a maniac. I mean, he's crazy.
I'm very, very intrigued. I'm interested. How many people do it?
Well, the first year, just me and my friend, because he was going through a hard time. So I came up with this bizarre idea to do this. And now this year, we're letting them enroll in year 2. You know, so there
could be 100.
Could be 100. I don't want 100. I would prefer 10, to be honest with you, because I don't want to. I don't think people really understand what this is all about. There's nothing crazy. There's no we're not climbing up mountains. You might go up a flight of stairs. There might be some elevation, but it's 44.5 kilometers in the river valley of Edmonton. And the crazy part about it is that when we did it last year, at the end, about 2 or 3 kilometers out, I actually thought I wasn't going to make it. And in my mind, and I'm not a crier, but in my mind, I was crying, because I thought, I'm not going to do this. That's impossible. I might not be athletic, but everybody that knows, I'm not going to stop. My wife said he's going to drop dead in the middle of the city of Edmonton before he doesn't come back here. Right. We finished off at the Fairmont Hotel McDonald. We went up the stairs at the end, and right inside the lounge, we had a big party after. Everybody was celebrating, raised all this money. But what I'm saying is, the thought of not finishing, I couldn't believe how that disturbed me so much, because that's never happened to me. But what I'm saying is, it could happen during this, because you never know. Frostbite could set in. The temperature could be minus 30 at Edmonton on February 26th. Who knows, right? Yeah. So.
Well, you might have a partner there. That really intrigues me. Yeah. And it's a great challenge, and I love it.
Yeah, it is. It started because a friend was going through a horrible divorce. He was on the edge, and I came up with some bizarre idea to start doing this every week with him to get his mind off of it. It worked. Now all of a sudden he's obsessed with it. I'm obsessed with it. And I hike with my wife every morning, 10, 15 kilometers just as practice. You know what I mean? It's crazy. Yeah. Crazy. Wow, but imagine prior, my point was, I would never do that in a million years. But when my anxiety got to a point, I had to start figuring other things to flip the script. You know what I mean? I don't want to. I don't want to live like this. I don't want to live like. I don't want to live. I know my dear friend Michael Landsberg says sick, not weak. And I told Michael the only way I interpret it in my mind is that I'm weak if I let it take over my life. I'm sick. See, I took his saying of sick, not weak, and he said, well, what do you mean by that, Mark? I said, well, what I mean by is I think of myself as weak if I let it take over my life. So
Very good point.
Yeah, it's different. It's a kind of a twist of the words, right? So he kind of said, well, it's a sickness. I go, it is, but I'm not gonna let it overtake my life. You know, I'm not. I'm gonna figure out every way possible to not have this happen. And I've heard you talk about that. And when I hear you talk about the black hole, and I hear you talk about all these things, it kills me, because I know because you're training and you're exercising, and you're 55 years old. I'm 54, and I'm like, you imagine they would think that people would look at you, Jim, and go, "No, he's okay. He played in the NHL. He's got everything, you know." But they don't know the back end of things, and that's what this show's for today.
Yeah, no, great stuff, and you've inspired me, and you know, like I said, I'm looking in the mirror, because we're living very similar lifestyles, and it's not easy. You know,
correct?
It's not easy. So,
but
What's that?
But having a partner, like you said, and Jesse brought that up earlier, having a partner that understands as you're explaining it and can use empathy and compassion with you instead of going, "Oh, suck it up, Jim." You know, like that's the worst. That's when you start hearing that shit. It's just like that's right up to here, you know.
No, and that's now where right away Rita says, go exercise. Like, you know, she knows the other side of it, and she's like, go, hurry up. One time, I'll give a quick story. We're on our way out to something, and I'm just like, she's like, what's wrong? I said, I don't feel good. She goes, go. I will wait here. And I went and I pounded a an hour and a half workout off. I came back, I was good. You know, just so great education for people out there fighting it. Understand, you know, it's a great tool to work with.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, anything that you can do to get yourself out is amazing. What do you still play hockey today? You still?
I do. So I train kids. I have a company called JT Prospects. So I'm on the ice during the summer for 8 weeks straight, Monday to Friday.
Awesome.
And then during the winter, we are on 2 mornings a week. And then I'll go out with my junior A team the odd time. So I don't play in men's leagues anymore. There's too much crazy in that. I go out and play with my junior kids, and you know, I'll poke around in the scrimmages with them. But yeah, I'm on the ice still and love it. That's, you know, it's so passionate for me. I'm a hockey geek.
How far can you take your team? You know, your Aurora Tigers. What can come after? Like, so you own the Aurora Tigers. Do you have aspirations of going to another level?
No, I'm whole in what I'm doing now. You know, I've had job offers over the years to go coach in, you know, minor pro leagues and all that. And I coached hockey, and what I found, guys, was really difficult for me because I wanted players to play the way I played. And I was all in. Like when I played, I would do anything with my teammates, and I'd run through those boards to win a hockey game. And I just found my anxiety and frustrations of really good, talented kids just didn't have that push or fire. And I found I was getting more angry with not being able to get them to play like that. Not their faults, but I'd be like, come on, like, you want to go play pro hockey or go to college, you got it. You just got to, right?
Yeah.
So I retired from coaching and was blessed to get into junior A hockey as an owner. And so this is my level. I'll keep doing this. I love it. And I love watching our players go to college, get drafted by the NHL, and, you know, many Aurora Tigers before I owned it. And some now have made it to the NHL, which is great, out of our stable.
What do you think about the, you know, going the NCAA route versus straight into the NHL?
Well, we would backtrack. So it'd be major junior, right? Or OHL, Western Hockey League. So I played in the OHL because I was a bad student. I couldn't go to NCAA. So both routes are great. But what I will say to you is this: unless you're a first or second round pick that's going to get a whole school package out of major junior, you have the ability to play 4 years, some 5 years in our level, junior A. You go get a D1 worth $250,000, you know, going to Michigan State or that if you're good enough. It's a no-brainer for me. Get your education, go to school, and if you're good enough, like the D1 players, for people that don't know what D1 is, it's NCAA. Yeah, they're going to make it if you're good enough, right? So, you know, the OHL, out where you guys are, the Western Hockey League, great platform to get to pro hockey. But let's face it, you know, you still can get your schooling. I get it. But to go to university, play hockey for 4 years, and then try to go play pro, to me, is a no-brainer. Wow. They're both great routes, but all depends where you are on the pecking order. If you're a third or fourth line guy in major junior, and you know your end result is, okay, hockey will be over, you're going to get into university, it'll be a little bit late, it's still okay. But man, playing hockey at you know, Boston College or what have you, and you know, so
well, the education's one side, but then there's also the playing time, because I know in the WHL you're only allowed to play a certain number of times a week, where, you know, in college you get to practice a lot more than you would maybe in another league.
Great point. So college, you practice all week and play on the weekends. So when you're talking about a young guy preparing, you know, you're in the gym consistently. You're you know, you get to eat like there's so many more benefits. And then you just play 2 games on the weekend. Yeah. You know, now what they'll say is major junior prepares you more for the NHL or pro hockey.
Yeah.
that's for the guys who are going there. And let's face it, not everybody's going there, right? So, our level provides that platform for a kid to go to college for 4 years. And then if he's good enough, he'll go. And if he's not, guess what? He comes out with the certificate, and he's still going to be a champ.
Now, the junior A level, like that, if they can jump to the dub or the OHL, they're going to do that and skip over junior A level. But you're there as a broader, so you can hold more players in there to get them to the next level. What's the point of junior A?
So junior A is two things. Is what I just explained. Is it's our avenue. You can't play major junior and come to our league and go to D1. So once you play major junior, you give up the opportunity. You're done.
Okay.
So you play in our league, which is very good competition. You guys arguably got the best team every year in the Brooks Bandits out there.
Yeah.
Right.
I went Spruce Grove through the Spruce Grove Saints, and they've been very good as well.
Spruce Grove Saints. Yeah. When I grew up, it was Spruce Grove Mets with Grant Fuhr and Mark Messier.
Yes.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
True story. I went to Spruce Grove High School.
Oh, the comp.
Wow.
Yeah. So what the two avenues are is that's one. And then obviously, like I said, major junior, we get a lot of major junior players back because they've gone to the OHL and they see that at the end of it all, they're just, they'll either get sent down, get cut, then they come back to our league.
Okay.
And many, many times, Jesse, where we have first and second rounders, which said we should have went to Boston College or, wherever the school is where they had offers, they went to the OHL route and, it didn't work out. But let's face it, the number one, we'll call it meal ticket to the NHL is still major junior. So I'm not sitting here saying major junior isn't but it all depends on where you fall in the pecking order.
Yeah. That makes a lot more sense because people ask that all the time. Like, what's the point of junior A then? But that makes a lot more sense.
They play with us to prepare themselves for college.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like that a lot.
Me too.
And then there's different levels of junior too. But yeah, so yours is the junior A team, and to be an owner, what do you have to do with that kind of stuff? Is it you treat it the same way as like you would the NHL league, like with your league in Ontario?
So we have 22 teams in our league, and being an owner, you got a general manager, you got coaches, you got trainers, you got bus trips, you got bills, you recruit, it's
corporate sponsors.
Yes. Without sponsors, we don't have a team.
Wow.
Yeah.
We don't make money at junior A. So we're very fortunate to break even or do a little better each year with our corporate sponsors.
That's awesome.
And the whole gig is to get these kids into college. So it's only for people who love hockey. Being an owner, in the major junior, it's different. The teams are selling for millions of dollars, right? It's a different animal. In our level, you got to love it and you got to work it. And, my wife and I, we work it hard so that we, continue it, not lose money and get these kids off to college.
How many games a year do you go to?
Sorry?
How many games a year do you get to?
So we play a 54 game schedule. I would say I'll get to over half. I love going to the home games. But what we have now is a thing called Hockey TV. So I can watch any game in North America. Wow. You sign up. It's a thing where I could watch 10 live games tonight from the Alberta Junior Hockey League, the OHL. Wow. Oh yeah, it's every league in the States. So what's the benefit of this thing is now scouts don't have to travel to Fort McMurray to sit here and scout a game. Right now, it's a benefit to being live, but it's a big thing for the scouts now that they can turn on any game any night and watch a player.
Yeah.
It's actually a big thing for those players too, because they might play in a place that maybe doesn't get a lot of scouts through, and they get a chance to get seen. Interesting. That's really cool. I like that.
Bottom line is, if you're good enough, they're going to be watching.
Yeah, that's cool. Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Jim, what we've talked about so many things tonight. What leaving people with something, the valuable life lessons that you've learned, what is the thing you would want to leave people with tonight? Say, hey, this is Jim Thompson. This is what you stand for. This is what I tell people when I have a minute to talk with them.
So, I have this platform now of respect, be kind. Our world needs more kindness, be fair. I'm dead against bullies. helping each other. It's just to make our society a better society with all the garbage going on right now through COVID and the anti-vaccine and all the stuff that we're dealing with. And to me, the more kindness, if I had to give you one word tonight, Jesse and Mark, it's kindness and respect each other. And that's if you're on my social media, I put up stuff every day on my Instagram just about being kind, right? Because it's something that when you see something that makes you feel good, if that can help one person plant a seed to maybe, just be a nice person, our world would be better. So my word now is just be kind to each other.
And people can find it all too at Jim Thompson 33.
Yes, Jim Thompson. Yeah, no 33, no P.
30, yeah, no P. And that's on Twitter and on Instagram.
That's correct.
Yeah, and it's also Jim Thompson's Dreams.
.com.
Yeah,
right? So that's my website of what I do, and I'm coming out there tomorrow because I'm going to be going to speaking to some groups and helping some people, and that's what I do now.
Awesome.
It's incredible. Yeah. And we could talk to you for 3 hours straight and still not scratch all the surfaces, but 100%. I'm very encouraged by hearing your life and going through what you've gone through and how you overcome and now you helping other people and helping so many other kids go through and maybe make some better choices too along the way is really inspiring. And so I wish you all the best with your team and with what you're, the bigger picture, what you're trying to do with, treat others the way you want to be treated and going with that. So we commend you for that. And thank you so much for joining us tonight on the podcast.
I want to thank you guys and thank Eddie for introducing us. He's a real enthusiastic go-getter. And I just, like I said, I'm February 26th. I'm going to talk to my wife about it when I get off here. It's a big challenge. Let's face it, it's a big challenge. But at this point, what else do we got, Mark? Challenges are great.
I tell everybody, if it had anything to do with athletics, I would fail miserably. So I tell people that all the time. I'm like, listen, people used to come and train with me in the UFC, not because I could show them how to punch better. I showed them how not to give up. And if that's what I could tell anybody, because I'm not that athletic. And I tell people right here, if you don't have this, going into February 26th, I don't care how much you exercise. I don't care about nothing, because the cold can take over your mind and your body. And then if you don't know how to deal with that, you're looking for help. You're looking for help.
100%. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for your time. We really appreciate it, and all the best. And hopefully we can do this again soon one day down the road.
Anytime, gentlemen. Anytime.
Part two has to come. We're going to put your website on all our stuff. We're going to put all your social media on your stuff, because people need to know who you are, and people might have missed the hockey era of you, but they need to understand this era of you, right? And that's super important.
I appreciate that. We never even got into Gretzky stories, because I got a ton of great stories. Funny, great stuff. So that could be our next segment.
Perfect.
We will remember.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for once again. We appreciate your time. Well, thanks so much, Jim, for joining us. That was great.
I mean, come on, this guy and from Edmonton originally. That what makes it even cooler.
Well, Spruce Grove. It sounds like went to Spruce Grove High School here, which, along with Grant Fuhrer and Messier played out here too. So I mean, Spruce Grove. I'm telling you, man.
Property value is going up immensely, but Jesse Martineau, you're responsible for that immensely, for your family, for getting the property value up in Spruce Grove.
Well, it was only, it's almost tripled in size since I've moved here.
Coincidence? Coincidence?
I think not.
Me too.
Crazy day in sports, obviously. Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton suck. But
don't be like that. Don't be like that on the show. Come on.
But anyway, lots going on, and crazy football scores. I still think it's the time change. I still think something's going on with.
I think you're right. You can't. No one's making money right now in NFL football, like betting on it.
All those win to survive pools are dead. There's one left over.
We got people tying yesterday.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean that never happened all year.
I loathe the Steelers, and I really wanted the Lions to win that game, but they can't win.
They can't.
This is the best they can do. They got a tie.
Totally. Hey, we want you to all check out Crystal Glass, crystalglass.ca, 310 Glass, best glass company on the planet, and check them out whenever you get a chance. They're a great sponsor of ours, and we thank them for their continued support.
And Eddie, thanks for getting us a guest tonight.
Little Rocket Gear plug tonight too, right? Got to plug Rocket Gear. We'll put them up here so you guys find out what it is. It's a brand new product that was, produced by our friends Eddie Hallaby and Dr. Niz. And I'm telling you, this is groundbreaking.
Training system if you're a hockey player and other sports too, but yeah, really designed for hockey.
It really is. It's something special. It really, really works. People are finding great gains with it. So we'll put their website on the episode so you can find out where to get your own Rocket Gear for yourself. And they're coming out with stuff in the future for your arms, for other things. Like it's very innovative company. They're doing fantastic, and we want to thank Rocket Gear for also being a sponsor of this episode. Thanks so much. And until next time, that's Mark Pavlich. I'm Jesse Martineau. This has been the Me and Jesse podcast. Next time there's a daylight savings vote no, or whatever it is, just to get rid of this stupid thing. It's messing me up. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for watching the Me and Jesse podcast. Follow us at facebook.com/Me and Jesse.